Hey guys, and welcome to the Fish Room. I'm Rachel O'Leary and it's time for a Tuesday tip. Today I thought I would give you a couple of updates, one on the Laetacara eggs, one on the apple snail eggs, and then a general 150 update, which is way like a month overdue for some trimming. So I thought I'd get started on that. I pulled out my trusty curved scissors, and one of the things I want to show you is how you can tell when to trim these plants. Now this tank is exceptionally high light, as you guys know, so it's prone to a little bit of algae, which I actually want to grow to feed some of the fishes in here, but it also means that some of these slower growing plants like the bulbitis get some pretty unattractive leaves that I need to remove. And I've shown you guys this before, but it is just time. So what you do is you find the affected leaves and you trace them back to the rhizome, which is that lateral finger-like thing. And then you just trim it off right above the rhizome, or right at the rhizome. And this is one of those leaves that's just mostly dead, and that is robbing the other healthy growth of its nutrition. So we just want to get that off to encourage new growth. Now sometimes when I do this, the tank ends up looking a little naked for a while, but that is okay, because we know it'll grow back in no time with how plants grow in this tank. I'll show you some of the stuff I've pulled off after I'm finished getting it out of here so that you can see what I mean. And I can also show you some of the new growth that is starting to come in. Now the last time I trimmed this tank, I didn't really give this side of the tank any attention, which is why it looks a bit rough. But it's actually easier for me to trim this side than it is the other side because of my vertical challenge. At least I can see what I'm cutting over here. Now I'm not going to take it all because I don't want it to look completely naked, but I am going to take a fair amount. It'll be worth it in the long run to have this plant looking healthier and green instead of having these dying leaves in there. I'm also going to take this opportunity to trim up all the bulbitis, as some of it looks better than others. I can already see a big improvement over here. So I again just trim off right at the rhizome any leaves that have algae, holes, or are dying. And again, that'll encourage new growth to come through. And often with the bulbitis, it then encourages them to flower as well, which I really enjoy. Flowering plants always make you feel like you're doing something right. You guys may have noticed as well, I turned off my air pump for you. I think it's pretty due, or possibly well overdue, for a rebuild, and we can tell that because it's just gotten beastly loud. It's usually not that bad, but whew. So here's to hoping I don't forget to turn it back on, being as it's the lifeblood of my fish room. I'm sure I'll notice how quiet it is. Now for a while in this aquarium I had some hair algae, and that's gone away luckily. I still have a little bit of green dust algae, but that doesn't bother me really. I'll just cut off the most affected leaves. And hopefully we'll get some nice flowers here shortly. And once I'm done here, I'll go through and I'll take a net and I'll just collect all the stuff that I've trimmed. pretty easy, really. been sharing so much of this Bucephalandra with folks that I've sort of overdone it, and I need to let it rebound with healthy growth. Now, I know this isn't the most stimulating thing to watch, nor is it the most stimulating thing to do, but it's a necessary evil even with these slow growing plants in order to maintain their health, longevity, and beauty. There is a ton of new growth coming in on these. Doing this big massive trim is really going to be helpful. That looks much better. So now I'm just going to grab a net and pull out some of these leaves that are floating around. And then we'll move over here to this section of bulbitis. One nice thing about this current is it does make it easy to collect the leaves that I've cut. I just kind of have to wait for them to get blown around. So now, instead of there being a lot of brown growth on that bulbitis and green and brown edged leaves on the Bucephalandras, everything looks a lot fresher. Now I'm going to move over here and take out a lot. See how the edges of that giant leaf in the middle are all black? That's just a dying leaf that needs to be trimmed out. It should be nice bright green growth. So we are going to do that. As I mentioned, this side of the tank is quite a bit harder for me to work on because I'm just not quite tall enough to reach. Well, I can reach, but I can't see very well as I'm doing it. So it makes it a bit trickier. I think you guys will be sort of surprised at the amount of stuff I cut out from this plant. But it'll make a big difference. You can see how some of this is just really old and needs to go. So you can see that the bulbitis, this guy, is looking much fresher. The different buces are all looking much, much fresher. At some point here I'm going to have to trim all these mosses that have volunteered in this tank, but today's not that day. I especially like this little knuckle of moss that is volunteered there. I definitely did not put it in this aquarium, but it sure looks cool hanging out there. Hopefully these guys will be flowering again real soon. And for the grand reveal, you can see I took out a ton of bulbitis from this side. But instead of it having those dark green leaves with a lot of black edging, it looks much fresher and the new growth will start coming in. I mean, the reality is I could probably hack at this tank all day because there's so many plants in it, and it's a bit stirred up right now. But all in all, not too bad, and I think in about a week it's going to look amazing again. This is how much bulbitis I took out. I mean, this is a massive amount of leaves I removed, and the tank still looks quite full. So it just goes to show you how much you can really remove and not have it impact the overall look of your tank. Now, lots and lots of you have been asking for an update on these apple snail eggs, and the first clutch that I showed you guys was a dud. But what I wanted to show you on this one is, see how it's getting that moldy appearance? That means there's baby snails inside that are growing. This clutch doesn't look super awesome, but I would imagine I would at least get 30 to 50 babies out of it. So it'll be ready in a few days, and when it's time for it to hatch, I'll give you guys another update. But you can see how it has that white moldy appearance, which is the baby snails growing inside the clutch. And one last update. Womp, womp, womp. These guys ate their babies. Actually, they ate their eggs. They didn't even get a chance to turn into babies. So, as you can see, I had allowed a lot of mulm to accumulate to mimic a dry season. What I'm going to do is about a 50% water change. Feed these guys really heavily with some worms, or maybe some crustaceans, and see if we can't get another go. So I hope you guys enjoyed some of the process that goes into maintaining this 150-gallon Hillstream. I really enjoy it. It's low maintenance. I have to do that maybe once every 4 to 6 weeks. And now we'll just give them a snack for being patient with me during the complete upheaval of their home. Now, before too long as well, I'll move probably about 8 of these minnows outside to my tubs in order for my summer breeding project. As always, thank you guys for your support. I really appreciate those donations that have been coming in, especially with all the wonkiness that's been going on with YouTube. As always, stop by my Instagram and my Facebook, as well as my website, MsJinx.com. And let me know below if you have any comments, suggestions, or questions. Now let's take a closer look at the fish eating. Really love those Rhinogobius and the Cobitus. Nom 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 nom. Some of the Borneo suckers. Everybody's happy to eat. Someday I'll finish stocking this tank.